this meeting properly noticed?
It was.
Excellent. We'll need a roll call to determine if we've got a quorum.
Ron Fruit.
Here.
Karen Tepley.
Here.
Tom McCarthy.
Here.
Rachel Schultz.
Here.
Melanie Walters. Here. Doug Martnick.
Here.
Steve Downs. Ryan Cairns.
Here.
All right, we've got a quorum. Next on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Once the council's had a minute to review that, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion from Karen Tepley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Melanie Walters. Any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda approved. Okay, items for discussion and possible action. The first one up is hotel developer selection and incentive discussion. We've got our friends with Ellers are available. You can see them on the screen up there. I don't know who wants to start. Jason, do you want to introduce this, or Darcy?
Yeah, so on your left here on the screen you have Kayla Thorpe, and on the upper right you have Keith Dahl. I think you've probably met both of them before, so they are our municipal advisors from Ellers Financial Services. And they are here to talk about their findings, which would correspond to the request for analysis that you all commissioned back in March. So it's taken a while for them to make the connections that they needed with the potential developers and to perform an analysis. You have that analysis in your packet, so hopefully you've had a chance to read that. There's a lot of good information in there. And we would like to just go ahead and turn it over to Keith and Kayla for their comment and kind of a summary of their findings.
Great. Well,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Keith.
awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Jason. Ultimately,
Thank you for having me tonight.
Go ahead, Keith, that's fine.
okay. Good evening. So in front of you is the Ellers memo that we put together, reviewing the two proposals that the city ultimately received from their RFP that they put out for partnering with a hotel developer. Part of this analysis involved requesting development financials from each hotel developer, submitting their development budget, submitting their projected operating pro forma, specifically their revenues that they anticipate to receive and their operating expenses. We also compared some of their financing terms and 15-year projected cash flows from a development as if it was stabilized and completed today. Now, I do want to mention that these are cursory reviews, in that the development information that both developers put together is preliminary in nature, meaning they're based off of previous developments that have been built elsewhere within Wisconsin. The whole point of this evening is to evaluate these proposals from a qualitative and a quantitative standpoint and determine which development partner you want to work with to construct a hotel within the city. So with that, with the cursory review, the main question that we wanted to ask was, based on the level of public assistance being requested from the city, does that result in a reasonable return on investment? Understanding that Richland Center wants to be prudent with property tax resources because they are scarce and limited, specifically and especially under levy limit circumstances, which we are currently in. We want to make sure that we are providing the minimum amount of public assistance to make a project financially feasible so that it can move forward. We don't ultimately want to unduly enrich a developer and over-subsidize any one development. So that, in a nutshell, is what the analysis looked at. And the questions that we're posing first, is, as far as the quantitative aspect goes, is both developers were requesting to purchase the land for $1. This ultimately equates to a shorter term of TID assistance. If the city felt compelled to obtain something for the land, Generally, this could be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per room for a hotel development. You would ultimately receive cash at closing for that land acquisition, but then you would most likely end up providing a longer TID term than if you sold it for $1. So that's the first thing that we post in our memo. The second, from a qualitative standpoint, is just some additional items to consider before selecting a development partner. I mean, ultimately, they did submit a proposal with a conceptual idea of what type of hotel they want to build, but I'm certain that either developer here would work with the city to at least achieve the vision that the city has for what they want to see within the community for this hotel development, the amenities, the tourism, the individuals that you want to attract to the community who would end up using this hotel. So with that, that is a high-level overview. We did provide 2 TID cash for each development, but again, these are all preliminary. Once a development partner is selected, that's where we need to start reviewing the financials and allow the development team more time to evaluate what this might cost and what an operating pro forma would actually look like. So with that, I can pause and turn it back over for any questions of the commission.
Questions or comments? Yep, go ahead, Karen.
So you had mentioned that if we would receive cash at closing for the land, that it would add a certain amount of years to the TIF. Do you know roughly how many years? Are we talking 3 to 5 or 15, or do you have an idea?
Yep, you're spot on with the 3 to 5. I believe in Grandstay it was right around 4, and Cobblestone I think was right around 3 or 4 as well. So that's generally what you can expect depending upon what the amount of the land acquisition would be.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, general question for either representative from Ellers. I know when you had requested or let, I think Jason know what information you wanted, financial information you wanted from the 2 different hotel chains. Did you get some of what you asked them for or all of what you asked them for?
Yeah, so the information that we received from Cobblestone essentially was the same information that was contained within the hotel market study that the city had commissioned a year or so ago. But granted, the consultant who worked on that market analysis for a hotel essentially compared it to a Cobblestone development. We would have liked to receive latest information, but that wasn't available to us at the time of the review, so that was the holdup there.
Okay, so when you did your analysis to prepare this information for the council, do you feel you had the information that you need to have, or is there more that you think you should have?
The information that we received was comprehensive, albeit it was probably a little stale, being a year or 2 old.
Okay. I'll start a conversation up here just on TIF for a minute, and obviously Jason, Darcy, Ellers, jump in if you have something to say about this, but preference, I guess, if you had a choice, council, to sell the land for $1 and have a shorter TIF length, or go the other way, receive some cash for the land and extend that out, sort of pros, cons. I know the obvious benefit to a shorter TIF is that it is in fact a shorter TIF, and that you get through all of that and the property taxes begin to be distributed again to the county, the schools, and so on much sooner. I'm sure they would prefer that. That's why. But how do you folks feel? What do you feel is the best course for the city to try to get money from the land or shorten the length of the TIF?
So how would a shorter TIF affect other development in that area? Because I'm sure our TIF, we're not anticipating it's just gonna be that block the hotel is on. We would want to include potential development around that area as well. So if we shorten the TIF, will that affect other development in that area? Or potential future development?
So if we were starting a TIF there, I would not anticipate that we would close the TIF early. We would plan on holding the TIF to the extent that it's possible to hold it because of the exact purpose that you mentioned. It's like we're able to expand the TIF boundaries and or do other development that are in that same area because of the TIF. So I would not plan on closing it earlier.
Yeah, and I was just gonna echo those sentiments. These are conversations that we've had with staff about kind of what is the immediate need and then the long-term need for this general area. Right? Now, a little bit back where the increment back to the hotel developer would be, but then identifying kind of what are those years of increment that would be after that can achieve additional development, public infrastructure improvements within the greater area, and that can be done through half-mile projects, which don't need to be within the TID boundaries, or expanding the scope and the boundaries of the TID when it's needed. Specifically because you don't really want to bring parcels into a TID speculatively. You kind of burn years of useful life of the TID. So when development poses itself within a general area that is in relation to the hotel development, and if there is, that's to the TID. If we're nearing the end of the expenditure period or we're midway through the life of the TID, we would explore creating an additional TID to facilitate that development. But because there is nothing on the horizon right now, we're not really recommending bringing in outside parcels just because you start the time clock on those parcels specifically.
Thank you.
Okay, so sort of, that's great information, makes a lot of sense, because obviously if you drive down through that neighborhood, you can see the potential for additional development, certainly beyond the block we're talking about tonight. So I'll go back to the question, I guess, opinions from the council. Do you favor selling the land for $1 and going with what is initially framed to be a shorter TIF, or do you favor selling the land, market value or closer to it, and go in that direction? Or is there a preference either way?
Is it going to benefit the hotel by doing the $1 property?
Yes.
Okay, so wouldn't that be the benefit to at least attract that, to get maybe more from it? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It'd be a benefit for them to want to put the hotel in here versus, if there's no incentive, they want to come in here, but it's more of an incentive to do it.
And that is exactly the intent of what's being proposed, yes. The question to the council is, do you agree?
Yeah.
Doug does. Okay, excellent. All right, going down through the rest of this, we of course have spoken at length at this point to 2 different hotel chains. Any further discussion on pros, cons there? Because there's 2 steps to this: choosing one and then offering this to whichever one it is, whatever package the council chooses. So, Cobblestone, Grand State. Ron, did you visit both or one?
Just one.
Which one did you went to Grand State?
I went to Grand State. Rachel went to both.
Okay, just refresh. It's been a little while since we did this publicly. Just your thoughts after having visited the Grand State location. What did you think of that hotel?
I mean, it was good. We also stayed at a Cobblestone then, the one in Mosinee, just for comparison. And I think that they are, what we saw in both, were very similar, trying to meet the, having the lobby being tailored to the local community. But beyond that, I think the rooms were nice, the rooms were similar, the amenities were similar. I think, there just weren't real significant differences that stood out in my mind.
Really? And you stayed in a Cobblestone?
We stayed in a
And
Cobblestone.
you basically toured.
And we toured.
Comparable.
They were very nice, yeah.
So you sound like you'd probably be comfortable with either one in the community.
Well, I'm not sure how to phrase the question, but certainly there's a difference between Market Point and in terms of Market Point being the developer, if that's the correct, and then working with, say, and I'm not sure that I know how to sort all that out, but that seems like a difference to me, and I'm not sure if it falls in the category of, does this merit consideration in the ultimate decision that we would make.
Jason, can you touch on that, what the point Ron's going for? I think the way you said it to me, the developer is an investor for Grandstay.
Yeah, in both cases, well, with Cobblestone, it's not exactly clear if Cobblestone would be investing any money from the organization into the development. However, they are acting as the developer, and they have, and the general contractor, so they have all of that in-house, right? So they're coming and saying, hey, we'll put up a Cobblestone, we're gonna take care of raising the additional funds in the community that they need to build it, and we have an in-house general contractor who's gonna build it out, and if the ownership group so desires, we have a management company, which I'm sure they're gonna strongly encourage that it stays streamlined within all of the Cobblestone divisions. With Market Point, you have Grand Stay Hotels and you have Market Point as the developer. So Market Point is an outside organization. They have built numerous, banks and other community type buildings. They've built other hotels, but they're suggesting for a community that Grand Stay would be the hotel that they would recommend. And they then will serve as the group that goes ahead and finds the contracts for all the building and things of that nature, and then also works in the community to find the investors. So one is Cobblestone all the way through, and the other one, Market Point, is taking on a bunch of the community development efforts, the general contracting, and suggesting that we build a Grand Stay.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Ron, for your input. And Karen, I'm going to come to you next. Karen has been a vocal supporter of Cobblestone, which is perfectly fine. That's why we do this. Just kind of detail, I know Karen likes it a lot because they tailor themselves to communities of our size, but what would you like to add to that? Go ahead.
Well, I guess first I'd like to start off by saying that when this began, and still is today, that I really just want a hotel in our downtown. So when I did the research, I came across Cobblestone. Cobblestone is headquartered in Neenah, and their tagline being, big city quality, small town values. I thought, oh, that sounds a whole lot like Richland Center. So then I just kept kind of, continuing on. I think the things that shine for me with Cobblestone is the fact that they do really concentrate on local. So it's local investors. That would be, your ownership group, the developer, if you will. But then they do have this really smooth turnkey operation. So they have been a unit pretty much since the beginning, 2008 when they started. So their builder has been, and I don't misquote here, but for a substantial length of time. So Brymark is their builder, and so they have, they've been through this, done this many times in the past. So they're not starting from scratch or, having to come to the community or find builders and find this and find that. They have it all said and done. I think with a project like this in a small community where you don't have the opportunity probably for another 25 years to build a hotel, that, to get it right is important. So you don't have delays and you don't have, missteps. And, with Cobblestone, they have 160 units that they have built or what's the word? Either a built or a transition into another hotel. 31 of those are in the state of Wisconsin. So right now they have 4 of the Main Street projects in certain levels of being built. So it's something they've done many times over, and I think those things are important with doing something like this and having that brand history behind them.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, at that point, having heard what we've heard so far tonight, for questions or comments from anyone on the council? Okay, Ellers reps, either one of you. So you've obviously reviewed information from both hotels to prepare this for the council tonight. Have you worked, I think I know the answer, has Ellers worked with either or both chain to get a hotel to be part of a project in the past?
I personally worked with Cobblestone, proposals in a number of communities, and I think we worked on a proposal which is currently under construction as a firm. And I believe firm-wide, we've worked on a grand stay. I just have not specifically done that. I don't know if it was out of our Minnesota office or Wisconsin office, but we are familiar with both hotel brands.
Okay, I know this is a pretty broad question, but it is so by design. Any issues, any red flags the council should be aware of in trying to work with either group?
Each deal is specific to the community, so it's really hard to say that negotiation points that have come up in other communities would come up here, just because it's different TID structures, different TID tax rates, different land plots. Some of the ones I worked on, it's commercial property that the city doesn't own. And so I can't really say specifically that these are going to be the issues. But obviously when you go through development agreement negotiations, there's certain points that you want to make to protect the city with certain items like minimum value guarantees by an X number of year, so that even if a development happens to be delayed, there's still a increment payment being made into the district. So outside of recommending specific kind of provisions for the development agreement, I wouldn't have necessarily any red flags from that point. I would just be cognizant for you all to actually make a decision on a partner and not negotiate against yourself. We don't want to go back to each developer and say, okay, let's start a development agreement, because that does nothing but put a disadvantage to the city. It really is, if you are going to select a partner, select that partner and enter into development negotiations with that partner. Because it's not acting in bad faith, but it doesn't really benefit the city as a whole to kind of court both of them throughout this process.
And I would just add, when it comes to putting out an RFP for development proposals, you really should look at it as you're selecting a development partner. This is a public-private partnership. And you want the partner that you select to be open book and transparent when you start having these discussions about financial assistance, reviewing their development costs, reviewing their development performance, etc. I will say at times Cobblestone can be very hard to get information from, and this can extend timelines before construction could commence and before a development could actually come to fruition. With Grand Stay, working through this analysis, they were very forthcoming with information and provided a very comprehensive proposal. So I do feel that transparency comes into play when you're looking at proposals and comparing them against one another.
Thank you. Okay.
Ken?
Yes.
Comment?
Oh, go ahead.
So I would just like to add, if I can, and correct me if I'm wrong, the slight difference between the two, as Ron alluded to, is that Cobblestone is a true franchise. So at this point, we do not have the developer, which is and will be the investor group. So because of that fact, and the fact that we we, as the city and the process, took longer to get to this point. Had we moved along as we should have with that feasibility study, all that information would have been what the folks at Ellers was looking for, and it would have been certainly more accurate because it would have been fresher. But as far as I have been told, and a little bit of research I've done, due to franchise law, giving that type of information is not allowed by a franchise. So, that's my comment.
Thanks, Karen. I have a question on, obviously, a key component to using TIF financing is tied to the assessed value of the property once the building is done. Just to make sure the council understands what they're looking at, what the questions really are that they're going to be asked to answer. Does anyone at Ellers have, or anyone with the city, history, an example of where either of these hotels typically assess once they're built?
Yes, and we can do you one better. We worked with the city's assessor to review both proposals to get an estimate of what the assessed value might be. So when we talk about TID assistance, it's based off of the equalized value, which is the fair market value. But when we talk about assessed value, it's slightly different because you have to apply essentially the aggregate ratio to make it uniform across the entire state of Wisconsin for property tax resources. So when you apply that aggregate ratio, the assessed value on a 50 or a 54 room hotel, you could be in the range of like 120 to 140,000 per room. Roughly, that's going to be around $4 to $5 million.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right, at this point, questions or comments from anyone?
I have a question for Jason. I did go to both of the facilities, and I just need a little bit of refresher. One of them was 3 stories, and one of them was 4 stories. Which one was which? I can't remember. Because don't we have a building height code in our city?
We do have a building height ordinance. The 3-story that we would have visited is the cobblestone, and the Grand Stay was a 2-story. But we've been fairly clear with Grand Stay that we are most interested in building up, higher, so the 3-story. I have not reviewed specifically the exact height limitation that we have, so it may require us to do some work internally to have that 3-story building placed there. But I do think that would be appropriate for what Richland Center faces with regard to limited development space. And the designs of the hotels and the fact that we've got other buildings downtown that would be similar in height.
Good question. Mr. Gold, as fire chief, I'm going to ask, one of the reasons a municipality would have a height restriction is to do with fire protection. Our fire department has adequate equipment in, like, how far, how tall?
Our aerial's 100 foot.
100 foot, so how many stories do you think that is?
10.
10 floors.
You're good.
Covered. Excellent, thank you, Mr. Gold. I think we stepped under that one.
You'll be fine.
Thank you. Okay, excellent.
Yeah. I actually, Darcy corrected me here, so Cobblestone was 4, Grand Stay was 3, is what we saw. Okay. I had it as 2 and 3, and it's actually 3 and 4.
Okay, Karen, you mentioned the Main Street. You used the term Main Street when referring to Cobblestone, which I believe is what's proposed here, correct?
Correct.
Tell me about that. So again, the reason I'm asking that, number one, we've got a couple of other persons that weren't really involved in the hotel discussion much yet, and 2, this is being recorded and also covered by the Observer. Tell me about Main Street with Cobblestone.
Well, the Main Street, I don't know if I speak for cobblestone, but the Main Street was designed for a main street. So I'm sure you've seen these buildings throughout, whether it be Cross Plains, Viroqua, where the building sits right close to the sidewalk. I can pass around these pictures. I'll start with one. This is an example of the cobblestone where it has really nice curb appeal. So I'm just going to say, supposedly, if the front of the building is on Orange Street, you will have a patio on one corner, and that side is very attractive to that street. Then the reverse side is actually the entrance, and that would face Jefferson Street into the parking lot, leading into the downtown, and hopefully someday to that public space that we're going to have on Jefferson Street. So the Main Street is also on the Cobblestone website. States it's an upscale build. It does have the opportunity to have a full-service restaurant. That would be up to investor group. They do incorporate some things like a boutique hotel with a lobby area, like you had mentioned, Ron, where the lobby area has, photos of the locale. I know when Anna was here one time, she did mention that she would be working with planning and historic preservation to achieve and to have those photos in certain rooms and public spaces. Also, when Anna was here, she did mention that when I asked the question about the upscale, she said that, the amenities are just a step up, from the sheets are nicer, the towels are fluffier and the like, so it just has a little more to it.
Thanks, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mr. Wendell, if you would, in the developers agreement, the revised, improved developers agreement that is now part of the Panorama development, we used terms like payment in lieu of taxes, minimum guaranteed value, which we heard others say tonight. Talk to the council about why that's there and what that does.
So essentially the TID only works if a certain amount of money is being paid into it. And so to protect the city's interests when negotiating these development agreements, and I'll be a little bit vague here because I don't want to get too far into specific for something negotiated. Basically, the developer will have to agree that regardless of what is actually up and standing on this property, we are going to consider it valued at X number, where X number is at the very least the minimum for what we need to make the TID viable.
So for example, we think we know where a building will assess. This is protection in case it does not.
Correct.
Okay, so that the city knows basically how much cash is coming in off this project, regardless of where it assesses. And the reason for that is
To ensure the viability of the TID.
because by state law, at the end of a TID, when it retires, if it did not generate enough money in property taxes to pay down the debt incurred, what entity is responsible to pay that difference down?
City.
The city is responsible to pay that difference down. So you can't have $1 million gap where you have $1 million bill to your taxpayers that is not due over 30 years, it's due now. So, payment in lieu of taxes and or guaranteed value says this is what it's worth no matter what it's worth. And this is how much money comes in, period, every year through the TIF. And that is there to protect the taxpayers. Therefore, that was included in the new agreement for Panorama and must be included in any agreement for a hotel.
It also incentivizes the developer to get the building up more quickly, I would say, because they don't, they're essentially incurring a liability until they start making money off of it. So if you don't have a hotel, but you're paying for a hotel, in my mind at least, that means I need to get my hotel up and running so I can start making these payments and collecting that incentive.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, the decision doesn't necessarily have to come tonight, but it's gonna have to come pretty soon here as to which hotel the council wishes to pursue, if either one. So I'd like anybody's input, opinions. I haven't really heard a lot of we definitely do or do not want either one of them. So does anybody have questions about either one or a hard opinion leaning you toward one or the other?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I want to go back to something at one of the meetings that Alderperson Cairns talked about, and that was the relationship of Market Point and having skin in the game, and if they would remain in the game, if the relationship or the aspect of that entity was different than Cobblestone. And I guess that's one thing that has caused me to think, since, will Market Point stay involved? Will they be in a position where they remain as responsible as Cobblestone being its own entity, if I understand correctly?
Good point. Ryan, do you recall saying that, discussing that?
I appreciate your memory, Ron. I can't remember what I did this morning, so. I think one of the things, like talking with Cobblestone, there's seeking an investor group to do this, and it's a franchise. However, they also invest in their own hotels, so like if it's 4 investors or 5 investors, they sometimes are an investor when there's a need to do that, and they, from those, Karen would probably know more, they hold those long-term. But, that is a good point. We can't force anybody to stay in, but is somebody gonna take the incentives, get their money up front, and then sell it and make their cash and walk away? And then who assumes that? And are they reputable? Is the hotel gonna end up being rebranded in 5 years? And, what is it? But it's a good point to add to the discussion.
Tom, I don't remember, have you been in either chain, have you been in their hotels? No. You have not, okay. So you have been in several of these meetings though. Any questions on your mind, any thoughts, reading through what others have prepared? Do you see something that really moves you, or do you have more information you'd like to see?
At this time, really, at this point, I'm kind of up in the air on either way. To me, it's kind of coming down to which financially makes more sense.
Okay, and at this point, you don't have an opinion that favors one or the other when it comes to which one's a better financial deal for the city?
Well, I think there's some information provided
Yeah.
that shows which one is better, based
Okay,
on their information.
you believe that is which one?
Go back and see.
I got it.
I think you're asking for a vote there.
Not necessarily a vote, I'm trying to help. I mean, we've got some people coming, looking at me with a lot to say, and some people looking at me like, please don't call on me tonight. And I'm just trying to give the information to everybody. So anybody's opinions, thoughts when you review the information. I won't push it anymore, Tom.
Mayor,
Yes,
can I ask a question?
I'd love that one.
Keith or Kayla, and Darcy, if you can scroll our packet down, further down, go the other way, please. That page right there. So if Keith and Kayla, can you see that?
They can't see it.
Well, if you go to our city website, you go to the agenda, open up the packet, you can see it. And
That's good.
Are we looking at the memo that Keith provided? Oh, here we go.
I'm looking at the city council packet, the information that we received.
Sure.
So in that Eller's financial analysis summary based on developer incentive requests, you have a note at the bottom that says, Cobblestone's estimates are more developed due to a formal pro forma submission and clarified incentive request. Grand City's figures are modeled assumptions pending additional details. What does that mean? Did Grand State give us assumptions and we don't know, and these aren't real compared to cobblestones? What does that note mean that you put in there?
So that note actually didn't come from us, but I will say both developers, Cobblestone, the numbers that was used in the city's market study that was completed over a year ago was based on a cobblestone that was constructed in Wisconsin. So that's the numbers that we used. So those were hard construction costs of a cobblestone development within Wisconsin.
So can I
Grand
ask,
State,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
if you guys didn't put in there, who put it in there?
We wrote that in there on your cover sheet based on the data available in Eller's report and the conversations with Ellers.
So does that mean that Cobblestone gave firmer numbers and
Well, like
Grand State did not?
What Keith was saying is that those are actual hard costs incurred from a real life project. And so they're using it on an actually built hotel versus Grand Stay, which they're making assumptions because they don't have an actual Wisconsin-built hotel, recent construction to compare it from. And so it's a difference. There's a difference there.
So we should definitely factor that into decision, right?
Yes, I would just add that Market Point with Grand State, I mean, they're discussing what costs are with general contractors today. So they may have more accurate numbers than Cobblestone.
And financials is a big point that I'll hang my hat on all day long. However, there's more than just financials to decide here. One of my questions is, we have 9.9 million Cobblestone, 8.25 Market Point. Like, what are we getting for that? Like, where are the drawings or what is going to be put up? Like, obviously with Cobblestone, it's the main street.
Well, that was one of my questions. So this recent build that was used, that Ellers used, was that from a Main Street build or was that from a different build?
We did not use any numbers because quite frankly, Cobblestone would not update any information besides what they gave Market Point over a year ago for their analysis. And so when Market Point did their analysis, they compared Cobblestone's submission to them against an additional Cobblestone property to see, kind of equalize the playing field and determine what construction costs could potentially be in Richland Center and get an understanding of what the level of assistance would need to be.
So the numbers, if they came from Court Distinction, not Market Point. For
Oh, sorry, Court Distinction, yes.
That was for the Main Street project. So my question is, what does the 8.25 million get us? Like, what is that? Like, where are the pictures for that?
That would be referencing like the presentation when Market Point was here, just like when Cobblestone was here and showed what the model could be for the community. So that would be thinking about that.
My memory, like I said before, what is that? Do we have that information from when they were here to show us?
Yeah, I think that was in a packet from about April.
It was in the packet. Remember when we were talking about how Cobblestone, I think Karen, you mentioned they have, a streamlined process, or maybe it was Jason, and the builder, the hotel management, etc. They have, this is the model, this is our Main Street model, this is what it looks like. There's not a lot of variation in that. Whereas with Grand Stay, they showed kind of an idea of what it would look like, but then they offer you the ability to customize it so that your facade could look different. Maybe it's that brick if you want a fourth story, if you want a flat roof versus the pitched roof. And so there's all of these detailed design element decisions that come with a Grand Stay that don't necessarily come with a Cobblestone, and that could be a pro or a con depending on your perspective. So that's sort of the base price of their standard concept. And then if we were to make adjustments to it, that could cause that price to increase. So as Eller said, as everyone said, these are our best estimates based on the data that we have available without knowing any sort of refinement or custom decisions that the council would like to see to make it fit for our community.
So what does that base model look like? Do we have that, or whatever these numbers are based on?
I'm sure Darcy can probably find some pictures from when they were here presenting.
But when they submit the financials to Ellers, there's no like renditions or drawings, these are just numbers that Ellers is getting?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't get involved in the design and kind of whatever specific ordinances that you may have that may dictate siding, pitch of roof. It's really on what could be a reasonable expectation for what the developer in the development is going to cost, and then determining a level of public assistance necessary to make the deal happen, like Keith mentioned before. And so, like Ashley had mentioned, both of them are going to take some level of approval through the city. Cost may change, design may change. Those things will kind of be vetted out once you enter negotiations with somebody and get those site plans and those specific renderings. But we look at it from the financial side of, to get somebody to actually put a shovel in the ground, this is what it's gonna take.
I mean, Grand State did, or I should say Market Point, did submit some ideas of what it could look like in their proposal. Ellers was more focused on the financials, but any developer, it takes resources to put together renderings. And so if they don't know they're the development partner for a community, they may be hesitant to spend money. That can certainly be a pro and a con in a discussion like this as well.
The picture that we had just before this one, which has got the comparison of Cobblestone and Market Point, has a loan dependency line where Cobblestone is a 70% loan and Market Point a 75% loan. Would you just please explain that? Is there some risk with the city when there's these loan numbers listed here? Or are these risks that are on the developers?
It is risk that is on the developers. So the developers need to get a first mortgage, construction or permanent from a private lending institution. Each lending institution is going to be slightly different. They might get 70% loan to cost or loan to value. They may get 65 or 75. That's more or less dependent upon the market at the time of closing for the project to move forward and whatever they can agree to with a bank.
Okay. Thank you.
So the images that are here would be, what they normally do is kind of their base model is a 3-story program. So you see it there, see another 3-story version there, you see a 3-story version there. So you can see that they are more of a custom build than a Cobblestone. Cobblestone has their Main Street version, and that's what they put numbers out for, whereas Grand State says, I said to them, well, we're interested in 4 stories. He said, no problem, we'll just have to come up with the numbers for 4 stories. So it's more of a design build element and custom build than the Cobblestone system is. But it does create, a lot more points and decisions to be made by a developer or potentially the municipality, because you guys could say, well, we want the architecture, right, to match downtown, and so therefore we don't want pitched roofs. So that was part of I think the conversation earlier, that we wanted flat roofs. So we would have to enter into that partnership and trust that they're going to do the best they can to provide what we want and to refine their numbers based on our requests.
It's hard to see, but you could, in the little picture on the left side, there's one that's like a similar style to what Cobblestone has proposed or has their design as. So you can see in that image that is an option, it is a style, whether it's that color of stone or otherwise, I mean, that is all changeable, but they're capable of doing something like that, but it's likely going to cost a little bit more than 8.25.
Well, that's my question, what are we comparing here? We're comparing 9.97 to 8.25, and if, it's great that they can adjust and do whatever we want and tailor it to the city's needs, but if the council decides that, and then we find out it's more than what Cobblestone has presented, like, what happens, like, if we're making our decision on these financials, and we're gonna say, hey, they're requesting less, or the TID's gonna be longer or shorter, and then it's like, we want that one, but then we find out it's another 1.5 million or whatever it is.
Some of these, your questions are valid, but we are not going to be able to give you precise numbers for either of them truly. I mean, the one issue with Cobblestone is construction costs were based on an actually built structure. Well, construction costs today are not what construction costs were a year ago or 2 years ago, so there's going to be some change in that. And now, you know, how much does a flat roof versus a pitched roof cost today? I'm not sure, but we're not going to be able to give you precise figures. We're providing you through the work of Ellers the best available data that we can with the information that we have. So there's risk in this decision or any decision you would make like this. And that's something that you have to be comfortable doing. Ultimately, I think we're in the best case scenario that we can be in, which is we have two great options and two hotel designs that can be achieved that would match the aesthetics of the community and fit in. And I think ultimately, I don't have a crystal ball, but we could anticipate that they're probably going to be around the same cost either way.
1 second, you're next. Michael?
I was just gonna say, we walk away. These are not numbers, you're not voting on a contract, these are not set in stone. There needs to be a period of negotiation following a decision on which development partner to pursue. And if, you know, Grandsay comes back and says, well, actually it's gonna cost $12 million, not 8.25, we say, well, thank you very much for your time, and that's beyond the scope of what we're authorized to negotiate for. And there's the potential opportunity cost, because if, you know, whichever one you select may not be interested if we have to walk away from one deal, but the inability to get hard numbers at this time is not, it is considered in the process.
Rachel?
Okay, so I need to step back because we are talking about the cost of a project. The city is not building the project, right? The city's involvement is over in the TIF and TID district area.
Incentive
And
package.
the incentive package. So if I look at pages 8 and 9 in the Ellers workup, do these pages summarize the city's risk in this? Either proposal? Because that's what we're mostly concerned about, the city's package and risk.
Both of these developments are structured on a pay-as-you-go basis, meaning as the development pays in tax increment into the district, it is reimbursed a portion of that as an incentive. And I think we have that structured at 85% of annually available increment driven by this development. So the city up front has no risk. The risk is creating the TID, and then it's sitting for 2 or 3 years before a shovel's put in the ground. But neither of these deals are going to be structured long enough to really jeopardize the life of the TID. And that's why we recommend and do structure these as a pay-as-you-go, because there's very little risk upfront to the city. Now, we can't see you guys anymore, but in neither situation are you going to get those hard costs or those renderings or whatever it is until we've entered or are close to executing a development agreement. And so that really is the impetus, I think, that we provide the context tonight, is no one, neither partner, neither hotel development, Ellers, your city staff, no one can guarantee anything until we start to have those conversations with your city attorney and your staff on what elements are going to be contained in the development agreement and actually start negotiating this with the specific partner. But the first step is that you have to choose a partner.
Well, the first step is that we have to agree to have risk in the form of setting up a TIF district. And then if we're willing to do that, then we're willing to do the hotel project and enter into a partnership.
And what would happen, so let's say the council said, either one, this is our choice. And looking through this, because you don't have to do anything that was proposed here tonight. Look at this and say, yeah, we think a TIF is the right way to go, or we think selling the land, however, whatever package you folks think should be proposed. Vote on that, so you do that, then it begins a period of negotiation, because now we need a developers agreement that's going to have language in it that will protect the city, absolutely, at all times. And it's always possible that the council would feel like you really pinpointed what should work, and the hotel chain disagrees. We don't want it to read that way. We don't want to sign that. I want more TIF. I want less cash up front, whatever else. And that what Michael was saying, that was why he used the term walk away, is always an option, no matter what you decide here, because this is just direction to the staff to negotiate with the hotel to get a deal, if it's there, based on the parameters that are set here. And then if it can't be done, we meet again and say, it can't be done. So nobody's committed to, risk for the city or anything. And that's just the facts we're being given here, based on the analysis that Ellers has provided. This is what we think would happen. Because as I think Ashley used the phrase, don't have a crystal ball. Well, that's why we use Ellers to analyze this and come back with what they believe would happen with their professional expertise to advise the council on, choose one or the other. This is what we believe you're looking at. And then the negotiation process happens and we either get the deal done or we don't. And we went through this. Again, I'm not going to read through an agreement here tonight, but Panorama had a developer's agreement in its inception, which I think was 2018, that was almost entirely revised last year to get the last two buildings done. And a lot of new language was introduced. A little bit was what they wanted, but most of it was what we insisted on, to protect our people from having unnecessary, undue risk in the project. We negotiated that through. This attorney and Panorama's attorney spoke, I don't know, how many times do you think we did this? Kicking that thing around.
No, it took a year.
It took a year. Now, I'm hoping that never happens again, but just so everybody heard that took a year, but we got it and we got it signed. And that was from, if you talk, this process had happened and the council said, let's pursue this. It still took a year to get a developer's agreement in place. I don't believe that would happen here. I think we actually have two eager hotel chains on our hands. But one thing I want to add to this, this is a lot. I respect the size of the decision. The council's being asked to make considerations of a multi-million-dollar project that would have a major impact on the center of the city. Okay, I get it. I'm not wanting anyone to rush or hurry up. I want you to try to remember this. We're in a wonderful position because we have two reputable chains who both want to be here. This shouldn't feel extra stressful. This should feel like a phenomenal opportunity for this city to move forward and get the hotel everybody here said we wanted when we bought the land down there and said, let's try to get a hotel. We didn't know, we thought we did, but we didn't know for sure if we get this far with one chain, we are this far with two. That's actually a great place to be. If you're on a car lot and they have a red one and a blue one, it's a better shot of getting what you want than if they have one and say take it or don't. So in my opinion, relax a little bit, ask the questions you need to ask, and just make the best decision that you think you should, because nobody tonight is gonna sign anything that says this much money, dig a hole tomorrow. You'll be, if you choose to, as a group, you'll be given direction to Michael, Ashley, Jason, Darcy, to begin work on a developer's agreement to get us where we think we need to go.
And if I may
And
add,
just to provide a little additional context to that, we would not start the TID creation process until we have some tentative agreements on a development agreement or an executed development agreement. We can create a TID district within 69 days. And so we are under no duress to get the TID created. That, like someone had mentioned, is the biggest exposure for the city. And so we would wait on any of that process until we have a agreement in place.
And I just wanted to say, because we do have varying levels of exposure and experience with the TID. As a reminder, it's up to the Joint Review Board to determine if a TID goes through or not. So that's just another layer, another level that we have to go through. But the pay-go model that, again, that Ellers has recommended, that's using new increment that never existed before. So it's not that we're having to draw down a fund that we have, or we're having to, raise taxes to pay for an incentive. It's using, again, the value that this development creates to pay its own incentive. So it's going in a circle. So it is the best case scenario as far as incentives go. And what Ellers has demonstrated for us is, yes, public assistance is reasonable to provide for this development. So that's one big question that we had to have answered. Is it necessary? What's the minimum level? So we know from the work that Ellers has done that public assistance is appropriate. And then through the development agreement process, right, we'll determine what that level has to be in order for whichever developer is selected to make it go. But we have to, in order to get to that next step, in order to move from where we are today, there has to be a decision on whether or not we're to enter into negotiations with the developer.
One of the main reasons that we're here tonight, I believe, is because of how we had worked together as a team to figure out what was reasonable investment of public funds in projects like these. And if you'll refer to page, it's item 1, it's page 5 on the Ellers document, you'll see that under Cobblestone, it says Cobblestone submitted a request for public assistance to receive the land for $1 plus 1.4 million TIF, which would create an annual cash-on-cash return of in excess of 18%. Okay? So, in the past, when we're dealing with Panorama and things like that, we relied heavily on Ellers to say, is an 18% a reasonable return to provide to an investor who wants to do a development in Richland Center? And you can see the standard range is 10 to 13%. So when the ask was that at that level, it made me, as your economic development agent, a little bit nervous because we would be paying a premium, in essence, for the product. It's not to say that the product isn't worth it, but when you compare it across the industry, there is somewhat of a premium reflected in those numbers. So without having talked to other hotel developers, we did not know what other developers were going to come and say. What returns were they going to ask of the city to provide in order for them to place a development in Richland Center? And so that's why, in my 1,000-foot overview of how we got here, that's one of the main reasons. When we first began conversations with Cobblestone, they said, yep, we want to build. And my question to them out the gate in one of the very first meetings was, how much money do you want to build there? How much money are you going to ask us for? And they said, well, we need to get back the financial pro forma analysis that Core Distinction was going to provide. Core Distinction provided those numbers to us, and you've all had access to those. And when I saw the returns and looked at the industry standard and talked to Ellers, they said, yeah, it doesn't really look like they need much incentive. And in addition, the numbers that were provided by Core Distinction had amounts built into categories of expenses that I knew were non-existent in the city. So that would make their return better than what was actually reflected in the document by Core Distinction, right? So again, it's very kind of subjective as to, very hard to track what the jobs are going to create. You know, are we actually creating new jobs where we're bringing new people into the community? Are we, you know, taxes are a big one, the revenues to the city are, you know, a big one. How many additional people come in? What additional business is there? Those are very hard things to track, right? We can make assumptions. The easiest thing to track is industry standard says this, how much are you asking for, and what return are you asking basically the city to provide for you. So that's how we got here. I think that it's certainly a worthy consideration, right? Is this what you want to do, and is 18 what you want to provide? Because there are lots of tangential effects and benefits of having a hotel there. It certainly would boost our community, but again, with the fact that we were talking to one person, they were asking for money that was, you know, what I would consider quite a range above what standard for the industry is, and we had no other, you know, we had no other proposals from other places, so we didn't really know. So if you look at that page 4 and page 5, you can still see that there's a difference. However, to Ryan's point, some of the conversations you've had, one is going to bring a product that you know what it is, and the other is going to say, hey, we're glad to develop a product. It could range in any, it could be widely varying, right? They're building casino hotels that are lit up in neon. So, you know, it's much easier for us to consider the cobblestone package than it is a Grand Stay package. As Ashley mentioned, the prices could end up similar, but the reason we got here is largely because of those numbers. And then when I said, hey, we should cut this out, this out, this out, and what do you think that gets you much closer to your number? Their response back was, no, we want the land for $1 and 1.4 million. So it's not likely that we're going to negotiate much from that coming out of this. If you want to try, that's great. We're 100% willing to try. But we pretty much know the ask. $1 and 1.4 million, and we don't want to share additional numbers because this is the program that we provide to other communities. So other communities have made this decision and have fared quite well, you know. It was just a concern, again, where we were and where we had come from, and not doing projects like this over and over again, where I'm going, yeah, there's some question there. And when I received counsel from Ellers, they said, yeah, it's right that you have questions there. So.
Well, you know, Jason, you must be a mind reader because you literally just answered every single question I was about to ask, so thank you for that. What I did when I was looking at this is, I know it's very easy to get hung up on, I want a cobblestone, I want a Grand Stay because I've stayed at one, or I like these amenities better. But honestly, I tried to look at this of the scope of, if I was given this document and their names were redacted and all I had was these figures in front of me, choice A or choice B, at the end of the day, which one would I choose based on this information in front of me? Because again, I feel like it's just really easy to kind of fall into a rabbit hole of, well, this one has this, and this one has this. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. To me, that's too much of a deep dive. So let's look at the financials. Just kind of imagine these names in here are redacted. So that's kind of how I looked at it. But again, I was all prepared for these questions, and then thanks, I have none now.
Jason, I have a question for you. You said you asked, cobblestone was firm on their ask. And with Market Point, what was their ask when you talked to them? It was nothing, that's what you told us, right?
Well, no, we have a proposal from them. Initially, they were like, we are so custom built, we need to know more about what you would like in the community. So, yeah, I think to answer your question directly,
But essentially in this, they're asking for the same thing. The difference in the TIF is just the difference in the cost to build, correct?
I would say that I would refer to the analysis that they did and the previous discussion point, which is they haven't focused in on the exact precise design that you might want because they're highly custom built. So we have already stated that we believe the costs are going to be similar when you build. However, I do think that there's more negotiation ability in dealing with Grand State than there is Cobblestone, because Cobblestone does stand behind the fact that they're a franchise and they don't want to discuss it. I've asked and can't, right? As near as we can tell, cannot. Michael's like, yeah, it's debatable, but that's what they'll say. With Grand State, you're dealing with a developer who will talk, he'll lay all their numbers out. They'll send any number that Ellers asks for, and that's not how Cobblestone typically does business.
And Jason, I would just add that Market Point did share what return they were trying to solve for, and it was a 13% cash on cash.
So if that's the cash on cash 13%, it means we can adjust prices up or down, we can find a different, builder, we can change the design, and they're still going to say, what we're looking for is 13%, where, that's not the same, they just do business differently.
Well, and I think to your point, they do business differently because of their structures. So once they have their investor group, which is the developer, which would be the equivalent to the Market Point, then that's when your negotiations start. So as with any good business person, negotiator, you're not going to go in on what you want, you're going to go in a little higher. And we just haven't gotten to that point yet where you can sit down with your investment group and negotiate what the ask is, because they can't yet because they don't have one.
Well, when I specifically asked if we could meet the investor group and talk and negotiate directly with them, the answer was we don't do that.
Okay, hold on, Brian wasn't done.
Just going back to Keith's point, you said 13% cash on cash for Market Point. Then why in the document here does it state, based on this level of public assistance, the average annual cash on cash during the term of the TIF assistance would be in excess of 14%?
Correct, because in their proposal, they requested the dollar for, or the land for $1 in 10 years of TIF assistance. When I put that in with their development financials, it equated to something slightly over 14% for a cash on cash. But then I specifically asked Market Point, what return metric are you trying to solve for? And that's when they showed 13%. And so later on, when we get into the options, on that same page, that's where I said, these are the levers that you have to push and pull on. You probably don't have to give 10 years of TIF assistance to get them to that level of return on investment. You could provide the land for $1 in 8 years of TIF assistance.
Mr. Mayor, Candace Fagerlin is online and she would like to speak if it would be allowed at whatever point you deem appropriate.
Okay, council, does anyone else have any questions or comments at this point? Okay, so as the agenda states, there's more than one question on item 1, hotel developer selection and incentive. We're not to the point yet of a hotel selection. And I have to come tonight, can't kick this around forever either. So I'm gonna go back there. Does anybody have like a firm, I love this one, I don't love that one on this? Because the financial, you've seen this analysis, we've asked the same questions a lot of different ways tonight. The costs are gonna be very similar. Which one, guys, if either one, do you think you want?
Well, I know I've done a lot of talking. And like I said, I've been involved in this for several years. And while I think, you know, options, I mean, I sold real estate and was in the building business for, 7 years. Options are great, but they also cost money and they also cost time. So when you have, you know, we can do anything you want, it's a little difficult to start with that. So when it comes to doing a project like this for the whole community, it's not your own specific business. I think having something that's tried and true, has been through the paces, has been done before, I think, and it aesthetically is what we liked in the past. I think I would like to make a motion to go forward with cobblestone. No, I don't think, I want to.
Karen just made a motion to pursue cobblestone. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Downs. All right, we have a motion and a second at this point. Is there more discussion on that side of this, on which hotel to pursue? Go ahead, Ron.
I think that the cobblestone Main Street really does fit that area. It strikes me that what it would look like would be appropriate for that spot going in. Part of me thinks that the discussion of what your lobby looks like or otherwise is not necessarily the most important point. The most important point is getting it built, getting it done, and having and knowing what we're getting. And so, in that sense, I see cobblestone being a good choice. Plus, their footprint in Wisconsin, I think, and their footprint overall is worthy of consideration.
Thanks, Ron. Any other comments or questions, concerns?
Candace did have, okay, I just
Yep, I heard
didn't know if
that.
you forgot.
No, I haven't forgotten. Anybody on the council have anything else they would like to ask or answer on whether or not, on the motion that's before?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
For Ellers or Jason, Ashley, Todd. The equity portion, 30%, cobblestone, 25%, Grant State, where do you get that from in the numbers? I mean,
Yeah, great question. So whatever they can't finance with the bank, they have to source from equity, either internally or solicit investors. So that's where the number comes from. It's just essentially the remaining balance that the bank is not financing.
so that's saying that Cobblestone wants to put more money into the project, is it not? Themselves versus Market Point?
Correct, because they're saying that their lender will only give them 70% instead of 75%.
So like, back to Ron and remembering what I said before, thank you, that's part of the skin in the game that the developer hotel is doing, correct?
Yeah, the equity is their skin in the game.
And I would just note though, in my experience, Cobblestone won't approach investors until they have an agreement on a level of public assistance.
I believe Anna actually stated that in the past, that that's how they do that. Because they need, in other words, they need to know what they're pitching to investors.
But I mean, this isn't their first hotel, that's what they do.
Right.
So,
No? A great question. Okay. Anybody else?
yeah, I have a question for you, Mayor. What is your opinion?
My opinion, I actually think both of these hotels would be a good choice. And as I tried to say before, I think we're in a great spot because we have two of them that fit. And that's what I honestly believe. Either one of them down there would be okay. The financial package, I believe, ultimately is going to be pretty similar either way. You know, and they both want TIF, we know it, to go negotiate on the land. One thing I don't like, and it's just about how much time it takes, is the fact that Cobblestone does not do much until they still have to go find their investors and all that, and they don't really get into that. They don't have numbers, so they're waiting for this. But that's just how they do business. Do I think either one of them would do well in Richland Center. Well, based on the information we've asked for and been given, yeah. Do I think the location is right? Yeah, that's why I supported the land purchase when it happened. I mean, I would build either one of them here. I really would build either one of them here. And whichever one of them, sort of the cleanest way to get it done. Asked a lot of questions tonight from everybody up here, from the folks at Ellers. It's a pretty similar path. You know, they do business differently, but they kind of end in the same place with a small town hotel in a small town. Nothing anybody up here told me about either chain when you visited them, stayed with them and all that, scared me off. I tried to find from Ellers any red flag on any work they've done. None came. So it's just personal, I guess, personal choice. I don't have a hard reason to vote against either hotel. And I don't see a huge, in terms of public risk, which is what I'm most concerned about, I don't see a huge gap here either way. Because they're asking us to do the same thing. You know, participate at the level that gets it built. If the council thinks it's cobblestone, I don't object to it. If you had said build the other one, I wouldn't have objected to that either. If you're comfortable with a package like this, because that of course is the second half of the question on the agenda. Because if you're not, the answer of course then is neither one. I don't think it's outrageous. The way this was given back to us from Ellers, I don't think it's an unnecessary risk to meet the end that we're after. We all said, heard and agreed that we need another hotel in town. I didn't hear anybody really say they didn't get that at the time anyway. The location, yeah, $650,000 yes vote to buy it. And the main reason, not the only possibility, but the main reason was to pursue a hotel to put it there. These two chains serve communities like ours. And we have a motion to do cobblestone. I don't have a reason. Nothing came out of this from Ellers to make me say don't do that.
If I may, we haven't really talked too much in depth about reference checks, but so you're aware, we did do reference checks for both Cobblestone and Market Point, and both received good reviews. They were positive reference checks from both sides. Both sides had folks that said it was smooth. It was a good process, good partners to work with, etc. I think if the big difference, right, goes back to that package versus customizing. But you should have peace of mind knowing that the people that have gone a more custom approach have also had a good experience, just like the people that took the package approach. So again, to reaffirm what the mayor has said, both are good options.
Okay, as you all know, we have a motion and a second on cobblestone. Does anybody object to that? Is anybody going to tell me that you think the other hotel was a better choice? Because if you are, you need to say it now.
What's the specific motion? Because on our cover sheet, it says it's multi-step. It says first we're going to determine if we're going to offer a financial incentive, and then we're going to select a hotel developer, are our two steps. So is this a one and done? We're going to say not only are we agreeing to offer financial assistance, but we're agreeing at the same time to only offer it to, at this time, to Cobblestone.
Karen, how did you phrase your motion?
I'm sorry?
How did you phrase your motion?
I raised the motion to proceed with Cobblestone, but I have no objection to changing that to have it encompass the financial package as well.
So the way we have the motion in a second was choosing to pursue cobblestone, but not specifically to offer that package in the motion that you made.
Right.
Okay.
Simply because that's what you asked
Yeah, no,
for,
that's right.
so that's what I
I'm just
answered.
making sure that's.
Isn't that what you asked us, to like pick the hotel and then talk about the financials?
I did. That's what I said. I'm just making sure that is the motion that I believe that's right. I was just asking for clarification.
To be clear on the intent of the cover sheet language, really, if there was not a desire to offer any sort of public assistance, why that would be number one. If you don't want to do that, then there's no sense in doing anything else. So we have to agree that if a hotel is going to be developed like the two that you have before you, that you're likely going to have to provide a level of public assistance as outlined by Ellers. How the exact structure of it is, the final figures, all of those kind of details, those get worked out in the development agreement that would come before you for final approval. So it's not necessarily that tonight you have to approve an incentive package, but going into this selecting a developer, please be aware that this is likely around this is what you're going to ultimately be asked to formalize and provide.
Okay, so at this point, the motion is to choose Cobblestone of the two. And there can be additional discussion on whether or not you're doing what Ellers has suggested or you're not. Okay? Go ahead.
The motion is just to choose the hotel. That's it. So don't put any of the, what you just said, the financials in there, because that's separate from this motion.
So would it be this motion that's recommended in our packet, which says motion to select Cobblestone as the preferred hotel developer, direct staff to negotiate a development agreement, and then in paren, and authorize preparation and submittal of grant application in support of the project? We wouldn't have the paren, we would just stop at development agreement?
Where we were so far wasn't even that in-depth. It was simply choosing Cobblestone.
Okay.
Now, that's in the hands of the council. Where we are right now is choosing Cobblestone over Grandstand, right now. Then we can have further discussion on any of that, if you want to come back to another meeting for that. Motion is to proceed with Cobblestone rather than Grandstand. That's where we are. That's what I'm understanding, Karen. That's where we are. That's the second. That's where we are. That's all this motion encompasses. Questions or comments? Okay, we'll need a roll call vote.
Walters,
No.
Fruit,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Downs,
Aye.
Cairns,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Tepley,
Aye.
Martinek.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Okay, the council has chosen to proceed with Cobblestone now. Incentive discussion, we've done plenty of it. If you think you're ready to make a decision and instruct your staff to negotiate, I'm going to phrase that, we can do that. If you think you need more information or time to think about it, we can do that.
I have a question on that.
Yep.
The incentive discussion we've had has only been around a TIF district. Are we going to have a discussion on the WEDC grant application as part of this project?
Good question, Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess just a little bit of background, WEDC has said that in communities like ours, that the Community Development Investment Grant is possible to obtain, and they have issued the grant before for hotel development in communities, and specifically Cobblestone. So that was part of the action that you took at the last council meeting, where you said we were postponing any further decisions until we know what's happening with the hotel selection. So at this point, if you're selecting that, we would officially move into a process of further determining the willingness of WDC to potentially invest a CDI grant in the community for hotel development.
And I would add that it would be very helpful and important for us to know whether or not we're going to pursue this grant for the hotel, because there is another party that has interest in the grant, so they're anxiously awaiting to know if they have an opportunity to apply for and pursue it.
What would incorporating that grant process into this project do to the timeline of the project? How long does it take to get a grant approved?
Well, technically we should, I think we can do some co-development of the application, and maybe WDC would allow us to even move into a pre-application kind of, they have a pre-application process where they'll let you through. If they let you through, your chances of actually receiving the grant are much higher. But the real key is that we do need a development agreement that's established, because it's kind of a pass-through, so Cobblestone is actually supposed to be participating deeply, or the hotelier that you choose is supposed to be participating deeply in the grant application process. So we got to have some certainty that what you would be offering Cobblestone is going to be accepted. So there are some things, it's kind of questionable which one should come first, but we're going to want to be very sure before we go to WDC, say, hey, we're asking for money, because we don't want to ask for money and then have the deal fall apart because we haven't had our negotiation completed with the hotelier.
Okay, so Jason, at this point, on these grants, how many can we get, one or two?
Well, Darcy just had a call with WDC last week, right? And so we have had updates with WDC. There is some indication that they're changing their programs again, where there could be multiple grants available in our community. However, because of the uncertainty and the freshness of the announcement, we're really feeling like we need to close the deal on a grant, figure out if we can receive it prior to opening it up to the community again, because we wouldn't want to have a grant applicant come in, slide in front, them do a pre-approval process and say approved, and then us come back in second and say, okay, we're finally ready to submit the our hotel project, and then go, well, we just issued you one, and our committee deliberation is now saying, yeah, we're not interested in issuing the second. So I think the answer is we need to complete the hotel project if you would like to access grant money for the project.
My opinion is to leave the grant out of it. I hate the bureaucracy that comes with it. You just gave a great illustration of why. All of this uncertainty, you have one, you have two, you have five, you have none, you have one, you have two. Things are on a conveyor belt. And all it does is slow this whole thing down, because if we say there's a grant in there, we can't tell them we even have the grant for quite a while. We have to go through all the steps to apply, get approved, all this stuff. It takes a long time. None of the grants we did happen fast. This is gonna slow this whole thing down. I personally would not put that grant into this package, that's why.
Yeah, we can incorporate provisions in the developer agreement to account for a grant being given. So whatever we negotiate, if a grant ends up offsetting some of these costs, we can incorporate that into the developer's agreement, so that we can kind of have our cake and eat it too for once, which is nice.
I'd rather do something like that than anybody here or anyone at Cobblestone to assume there's a grant in this, because we have no control over that, frankly. We don't even know if we could get it for them. Yeah.
That's correct. I think you're best considering your worst case, not worst case, but you need to consider the maximum amount that you're willing to invest through the TIF financial, tool. And then if we're able to do better than that, because there's a grant, like Michael says, we can write it in and we can execute the grant. But if it doesn't work, you still plan all along. Like, we want the project, and we understand that it's possible that the district and other, whatever financial means that Ellers advises are going to be the way that you're going to accomplish the goal of the hotel.
If I could add and maybe make it a little bit muddy, we have the opportunity with this grant to support a community asset that doesn't otherwise necessarily have access to funding like this. Whereas when we're talking about the hotel, we know based on the work that Ellers has done, that an incentive can be provided to a level that is needed and desired, that could be done purely through TIF. And so that's purely with their tax increment. So I would say we actually can have our cake and eat it too if we didn't use the grant on the hotel, and we can boost or bolster up a community asset.
Thank you.
With that being said, then I would say we should not pursue the grant, because we have the opportunity to give them the funds anyway, and then put it towards something that can use it and would need it.
I agree. Thanks, Ryan. That's the grant. That's that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, excellent question. Great input. All right, so does the council wish to give direction to the staff an incentive discussion to be had with Cobblestone. If you do, what direction would you choose?
The direction that I would choose is for Jason, Darcy, Ashley to negotiate the best thing to get it done. So if I can make a motion, that would be my motion.
Motion is to direct Ashley, Jason, Darcy to negotiate with Cobblestone the best incentive package for the city.
To make it work for the city and for Cobblestone. Not unduly enriching somebody, but make the package work.
Motion from Mr. Cairns, is there a second?
I'll second.
A second from Ms. Templey. Is there discussion on this one? Hearing none, we'll need a roll call vote.
All right. Are you guys okay if we go in the same order?
Doesn't matter.
Walters. Aye. Fruit.
Aye.
McCarthy.
All right,
Downs.
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
Martinek.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Okay, next will be Lamont Residential Subdivision. I'm going to take about a 5-minute break here. If anybody needs to use bathrooms, get your rags, do that. Ellers, thank you very much for your participation and all your help on this project.
We'll be in touch, Kayla and Keith, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Grant fund allocation. Jason, please introduce this topic for me.
Okay, so this isn't an item where we want to discuss the Lamont subdivision that we've been working on for some time with Michael Lamont and Ellen. So thank you, you two, for hanging in there. It's been a long process. We have got some refined data since the last time that we have talked about this. We tried to keep it as simple as possible here because there is a lot of work to be done, but basically tonight we're looking for some type of consensus if you're looking at a 19 lot scenario or a 9 lot scenario. And since our last meeting where we earmarked about $800,000 of the HUD community project funding, we've done enough research to believe that if we go with the 800,000, we're only looking at about 9 lots being able to develop for that. If you go with 1.5 and the city wants to invest in the infrastructure, so that's basically what we're talking about. We're talking about investing in the infrastructure, then it makes the 19 lot scenario. So that may require reallocating some of those HUD grant dollars from one project to another, or it may involve some other city, financing mechanism. But basically, that's what we really need to focus in on. Are you looking at 19 lots? Is that what you'd like? If so, we're looking at roughly a $1.5 million investment by the city for infrastructure. Or if you want 9 lots, the previously kind of earmarked amount of 800 we think might be possible. But we have to really start to invest in higher level engineering. We've done a lot of concept work. But where you really get those finite numbers is in the next level of engineering.
Okay. Okay, so as you stated, one of the key considerations is, and this is all coming down to money, is basically 9 lots or closer to 20. And again, the funding source that we were talking about here is the federal grant we have, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, so it would be, do we go with what was originally proposed in terms of how much we invest from that grant in this project and have 9 homes? Or do we reallocate and go bigger for 19? My first thought, we struggle so much all the time trying to find places to build houses here. It never ends. I will definitely favor more rather than less, especially since this is federal grant. It's a unique opportunity. Right? We don't have this in our hands very often. We have land up there that was sort of started to be developed back around 2007, I think it was. I actually just heard from Kerry Norman yesterday. He did Rainbow Drive, which is next to this. And the Wheat family had started this and had intended to finish it, and basically the city got into some choice making at the time and Rainbow got done, and this just sort of got stopped. But up there on the hill, there are the fire hydrants, the water line is in, the power lines are overhead. So Scott Galt left, but his words to me, easily accessible. So it's just unique because some of the infrastructure that is needed for houses was already put in because they started to work on this once before. That's an advantage. Grant money that we don't usually have, another advantage, and we have enthusiastic people here who bought this land, cleared a bunch of brush already, and have done a lot of work with some engineers to come up with a plan to do this. You know, this is for single-family houses. This is the best opportunity that's come in here time is mere. And it just, now it's detailed time. Do you want to reallocate money? How many houses do you think we should chase? And then after that, I mean, there is another piece to this that I'm going to have Jason and probably ask Mike and Ellen to elaborate on, which would be the possibility of buying them out of the project, which is something that's new in the conversation, and I'm going to have Jason talk about why that is a maybe. But before we get that deep into this, federal grant money for infrastructure. So Ashley and Jason did most of the work that led us to this grant. Darcy's involved in it now. Anything going on here that we think we'd run into trouble with the Fed? Don't use the money for this, you have to do it that way. Do we have any headaches waiting for us up there?
I would say no, I don't anticipate any. The challenge that we have is to make the decision on reallocating from another project, and that project is the Starlight one we've previously discussed, and how there's a reversionary clause that creates a challenge. At this point, as to the best of my knowledge, progress has not been made on that. So that means that if that wasn't resolved, we weren't going to move forward with that project anyway, so those dollars would be available. But this subdivision development perfectly fits the bill for that grant.
Okay, so we're not running into a guardrail on that, and I have had no indication from the landowners of the Starlight property that they intend or are willing to remove that clause. They've held it since 1952.
Did we give them did we give them a deadline that, remind me what that was?
I think it was August 31st.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as that piece, I don't know about their willingness to sell some of the land or whatever, but to remove that in advance, I don't see any chance of that. Thank you.
I just didn't want to say, yeah, let's reallocate, and then in 2 weeks he comes back and he's like, I found out a way to do it. So, okay.
Mayor,
Yep.
Ashley, remind me when we reallocated the grant from the hospital and we picked, but there were some things that we dropped off the list. Do you still have that? Are we jeopardizing any other project that was on that list that we didn't put those dollars towards?
It would really, the Starlight project is where the total amount of the additional funding needed would come from, but there was like Hive Drive, which was on that list, that we were talking about for safe travel, pedestrian travel, having a sidewalk installed and some street lighting, that sort of thing. In particular, with 2 new apartment buildings being developed right across the street, it made sense to utilize the grant dollars towards that public safety project. But we wouldn't be sacrificing any others that had been approved. It's just the Starlight project.
Correct, but when we decided which ones we were going to allocate it towards, we had to drop some off of that list.
Correct.
And what were those? That's what I'm asking.
Darcy, do you still have that list?
I do.
Available?
Yeah, it was Story Field. The hospital was the number 6.
If you have it, can you just throw it on the screen, please?
We can just unplug and plug into this.
And Darcy, I just want to thank you. You're the most technologically advanced person here.
Yes.
Are you being sarcastic?
That's actually very accurate.
Can I just ask?
Of course.
I wasn't on the council, so can I just have a little bit of history about this grant?
So it's federal level funding. Each year around spring, they open it up and folks can apply. And so a couple years ago now, Jason and I put together a proposal and we submitted that to both Representative Van Orden and Senator Baldwin. They reviewed it and they pushed it forward. Ultimately, Senator Baldwin pushed it through the finish line for us. So we were awarded a significant amount of money for infrastructure. And so this was to support the hospital's development, but then after we were awarded the grant, then we received news that the hospital wasn't going to develop. So Darcy, Jason, myself, we've worked with HUD in reallocating, finding a way to reallocate those dollars rather than losing this and such an amazing opportunity for us. We've worked with them and they said, yep, you can reallocate those dollars so long as they meet the original intent of the grant award, which was infrastructure. So we're limited in so far as we can only use it on infrastructure, but we can use it across multiple sites, multiple projects, so long as it's infrastructure.
Okay, so in the memo, where it says, it talks about different sources of funding. What does that mean compared to what you just said about the grant?
So
some options include using cash on hand, borrowing, or proceeds from the sale of storage vehicles.
So anytime we do something like this, there's always multiple ways to do it.
Okay.
And so that's purely to let you know that it could be a combination of things. So we could partially grant fund it, we could use cash reserves, we could, things like that. We could even borrow money if we wanted to, right? So there's just many ways to structure a deal or structure funding for the project. We're not limited, but we do have the opportunity here to utilize those grant dollars towards it.
And the grant dollars would pay for the other 10 lots?
So
not the lots, but the infrastructure to develop
right,
those
so
lots.
Based on our estimates right now, what we believe it will cost, subject to change, we believe the grant would have the ability to fully fund the infrastructure, but we can't say that definitively.
Thank you.
Okay, is that the list right there of what was dropped off?
This is the list of what we kept. This is the list, so basically Story Field and the hospital were dropped off.
Can you blow that up, please?
Thank you.
So one of the things that is challenging about this grant is that we basically, when you normally get this grant, you usually invest it in one project. Okay, so that means there's one environmental review, and there's one set of basically financial records that you're keeping, and there's one set of reviews by HUD on those records you're keeping. And we proposed four different projects, right? So that is extremely complicated. So it's actually to our benefit to narrow these projects, and it'd be great if it got down to even 2 or at 3 at the most, because for each one of the projects we have to go through a very specific process that meets all of the HUD's requirements. And so it's just kind of I think a detail note that's important for you to recognize, that it might seem like we're managing one grant, but if we do 3 or 4 projects, we're actually managing 4 separate, and the time and effort that it would take to do that would be times 4, and it may require us to invest a substantial amount of that money into consultants that would assist us through the processes.
The point I think Jason's trying to make is that this is a very heavily regulated grant. And so we have a lot of rules we have to comply with. It's very labor intensive. It's a huge time commitment. It's a huge time commitment for one project, like he said. We have multiple projects. So it's going to put, it realistically is going to put a heavy strain on Jason's department, his time, Darcy's time, my time. And that's not a reason not to utilize it or not to do it. It's just we have to recognize that and then potentially factor in, like he said, contracting with outside providers to assist us with that, to make sure we're in full compliance and we can effectively manage it while also doing other things that the city has going on as well. Other initiatives like the hotel project, right? That's a big project in and of itself, and then we will simultaneously have these grant projects as well.
Can I ask another question?
Certainly can.
The diagram that's in the packet, does that go it goes with this agenda item, correct?
Correct.
And there's two.
There are two now.
So
Yeah.
the first one is not 10 lots,
Okay,
it's smaller, and the second is 19 lots.
okay.
Did that answer everything you need?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so again, the list of projects that have been dropped out of consideration. Anyone comments, questions on any of this that haven't been addressed yet? Yes, Karen?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand. So if we move forward with the full project, the 19 lots, then funding from the Starlight will switch over to the Lamont project,
That's what we would recommend.
recommend. And then the Jefferson Street project as well as Hyde Drive would remain on the list to do in the future.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And as far as the infrastructure, are we talking physical infrastructure? Are we talking physical infrastructure and engineering and all of the other things that go with it?
Yes, we are able to use the funds for engineering and all associated project costs, including, if I'm understanding correctly, Darcy, we're able to use some towards grant management administration, so.
So that was kind of my thought process next, is to be able to hand off most of this project and this grant to professionals that do it. So is that kind of the plan?
Yeah, the last HUD grant that I had experienced was the CDBG close grant, that where we were able to do the addition, the elevator addition to the auditorium building.
Right.
So we hired, or the county elected to hire Bierberger Engineering to assist with that process, and I think it's fair to say that this grant, to this extent, 3 projects, it is a full-time job for the next 3 years for a single person. That's how much time is involved. So we're definitely going to be looking into spending some of the money on consultants that can assist us and make sure that it gets done with excellence.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and I would suggest, hitting 95% of it all. Yeah, because
Along with that, is 100% of that going to be paid out of the grant? Or are we going to have to pay, the city have to pay to administer it?
No, it would be a grant eligible expense, and there are some things that are some soft costs that we can incur prior to everything be I's dotted, T's crossed with HUD. So there will be spending before we're officially completed with the process, but it's all reimbursable. So we're not seeking to incur costs that would be outside of the grant.
Okay, so 9 houses, 19 houses. Thoughts? Just there for money's the next question. Well, it's not. It's one question. The only reason we would do 9 is because we didn't spend the money to do 19. Is that correct? Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, you've heard me on this. As much as we fight for places to build and as much as was done to prepare this before by the prior developer, I'm 100% on this one to go for 19 houses up there. 100%. Thoughts, questions, comments?
It'll just cost more the longer you delay it.
Well, it does. It definitely, yes, no doubt. I don't see building costs coming down anytime soon. Unfortunately, every forecast I've seen says it'll stay where they are and go up from there. Okay, Ron, did you have a question? I wasn't sure.
No, but I'm just thinking about how many times you've talked about to the community how much we need places to build, and sending the message of making a decision for 9 as opposed to the opportunity to do 19 would fly in the face of everything you've said previously.
So the most recent example, and it is recent, there was a change at Rockwell, and there's a new plant manager there. and they offered the job to somebody who turned it down because he couldn't find a house. That's, I can't count how many times, so they hired somebody else that lives in Laval because they don't need a house, because the person they chose couldn't find one. There you are. So opportunity and unique. We have a funding source, we have the land, we have some of the infrastructure in place, and we have the demand. And I just love the project for the possibilities for the community. Okay, questions or comments for our two builder friends in the back who brought this to us in the first place? I kind of do. Can we get a microphone back here?
Go ahead.
Is it on?
Mr. Lamont, how are you?
I'm still thinking about the hotel. I could use a nap.
Kind of wore them out. They're coming.
This is exhausting.
Mentally exhausted watching that from us. Okay, so, all right, how far along? You guys have worked a lot with engineers, with Jason, with a lot of different people. So we've talked about stormwater runoff and all of that stuff. What's left to sort out on that hill?
Well, good point, because I think the 19 lot development is pretty much the same as we've always presented time and time again. We've done some subtle variations on how we do the lot lines and the platting. The one biggest thing, and you know, I have all these different professionals that do different aspects of the design, but my water resource management professional. We're looking at the new survey that we got for the exact elevations. The two things we could use from City Council for direction is, do you want us to engineer now on my dime because we want to get it going now rather than when we hire a grant administrator? But the two things, if we want that regional capture point at Snyder, Sunset.
Okay, hold on. These
Okay.
folks haven't seen this. Jason,
No.
do we have a map? Do we have anything to show? Or I don't know if they,
Is it this man?
Just
Or-
not really.
I could point to it on that one that you have up here.
No, hold up.
Yeah, just to say, you'll see why I'm doing this, just a second.
And I think we don't want to make it too complicated in this discussion
I
either.
don't, but I think this is kind of a key point here, guys. Okay. So guys, it's the third square to the left, if you lean to the right.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, nobody's getting an advanced degree on this tonight. We just,
Yeah, right.
And then drill down, oh, that's not the one I was looking for, go to, I didn't do that, there we go. Now go to, right there.
Oh,
okay, so what, Mike, did you work with an engineering firm to come up with this plan? I don't remember where it came from.
Yeah, you know, we spoke with Andy Zimmer at MSA. We ended up hiring JSD.
Yeah.
JSD did all the original plotting for the Wheat family. So they did do the layouts and they did the secondary sanitary sewer. So go ahead, Jason.
To keep it really simple, what he's referring to is this space here,
Can everyone see that? Hold on, Jason, you're black. There we go.
which
we call it the infill plateau.
which is a plateau that was built by Phil from North Pond Lake, I guess you call it, North Park Lake. Lake Luella, I've heard it, I've heard it too. So the fill that was taken out of here was placed up there. This is not being used, it's elevated, it's prairie grass, as you can tell from there. There's no real use for it right now, but in order to make the development of this whole area,
That's
which
where
is the
lot, hold on, that's where the lots are.
that would be the
Where you
19
just
lots,
touched in the trees.
right? We would be looking to create a form of stormwater retention system on this, which is city-owned land. So, did we capture it?
Yeah, that's it.
And the reason I had that address is because that piece of information took a long time. We've been trying to figure out what to do with the water runoff, because as you can see, again, where the trees are is where the houses would go. Look downhill, what do you see? A neighborhood. If you start cutting into that hill and putting pavement in there and all that, where's that water gonna go? If you don't direct it someplace, right into the neighbors down the hill.
We've done the engineering on the watershed management. It's not only my 12 acres, but it's the acreage above there.
Explain that. Can we, yeah,
So on this 12 acres, that'll have 19 homes on it, it's also some of this watershed on this bank here that we account for as it comes onto this plateau here. There's 110 feet, 120 feet of elevation gain from down here on this corner to up here on this peak. So we can capture stormwater here, and what I'd like to do is pay the engineer to figure out what it would take to even pull the stormwater off of this lower quadrant to pull it up to here. If we had stormwater capture there, we could capture it from that whole valley up there on Snyder, all the way up to Ada James and everything else.
so what you're saying is if this was done the way you just described and all can get mapped out, the stormwater runoff for your project would come down to that plateau.
Right.
But also, if there was future development up behind you in the valley, that perhaps would run off in the same place. So doing this would prepare a big chunk of land for future development, well beyond what you want.
Yeah, future.
If we can control that stormwater, there would be a regional stormwater control point that is superfluous to my 12 acres. It goes all the way up there. So it'd be a way for you to do the improvement on it within our budget, and while I own that whole stretch of land and the 2 lots.
So you are proposing, you want basically direction on if you should invest your money into the engineering to figure out if that works.
Yes, and
Okay.
what Chris at JSD says, we just need your approval for that stormwater off-site storage on the Llewellyn thing. That would be a big part of our engineering, because most of the other stuff we have figured out, because I have other trade professionals.
So I've heard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have a cost estimate on what it's gonna cost to engineer that?
What's your next phase?
I know, I know.
It'll be mine. My entire engineering bid is around $110,000.
Okay, and then a timeline.
And this one will be beyond that.
So you hand over this to the engineer and say, get my water down there. How long does it take till you know that it works?
And the way I phrase it is, I have this idea, is it a good idea?
Yeah.
Because it's just a bad. So how long will it take my engineer?
Timelines, how long do engineers take to do that work? I've never.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to schedule it with him, and I honestly can't tell you because I don't know how much work he's got in front of him right now.
Fair.
Most of the time that we've asked Chris to do something from JSD, we schedule it and he gets at it in 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, so I,
Go ahead.
okay, we're a little bit cart before the horse here. First, what you need to decide is if you want 19 lots or 10.
Stay here with me. On the map.
I
Just stay here for me. See the map? I need you. Show them where the houses will be. Show them where the house will be and where the road will be. Just show them what they're buying. Up there. Where is the street gonna go in?
So, are you able to, okay, so, right now, this is Rainbow Drive. Rainbow Drive would come out, and you can kind of see this line through here. It's a little bit random now, but you can see it starts here. Well, that's where the buried water line went from 20 plus years
I
ago.
think it was
30 years ago.
07. I think it was 07.
Yeah. So what the development is proposing, that Rainbow Drive comes out, we shift the entrance in up the hill so that it would be next to the water infrastructure that's there, which is typical, right? You typically have your water infrastructure, your sewer infrastructure, and your storm infrastructure all moving with the roads. So the road would move up the hill where the road was planned years ago and would align with the water infrastructure, and then we would be adding sewer. So you have lots, if this is your road, you have lots all along the bottom here. And then you have a series of lots on the upper side of the road, and then you have a series of lots that come off of the upper Chickadee Lane here.
Okay, so what we'd be doing, okay, make sure we got this, where Rainbow Drive was proposed originally to be in a different place than where it is. It was supposed to be a wider street than it is, and it was supposed to run through those woods.
Yes.
Okay, so the proposal now is to put Rainbow Drive where it was originally slated to go, which is through what is currently that wooded area, and to put houses on either side of the new street. So the infrastructure money through the grant would pay for the street, pay for the sewer. I don't know what we have to do with electric, I assume that's part of it too. So that's where the money would go. So when you look at that parcel, envision, you see where, Jason, touch Rainbow Drive. Just touch it. That's where it is right now. And it's gonna move into the woods and be a wider street, a city street, a proper city street. That is not, if you drive up there, that's a driveway. It's just an old curb and gutter, it's narrow, we're gonna fix that, put houses on either side. So that's where this money goes. Now, 9 or 19. So you basically double the money we're gonna put in this to double the houses, that's where it'll all go. That's what I wanted you to understand what you're paying for with your vote. Okay? Go from there.
So the 9 or 19 is the big question because there's a major difference. However, we believe it can all be grant funded, right? So the 19. If we get that decision from the council, then the next goal for us is to really hammer out the development agreement. Because you're gonna have to, or you're gonna wanna be interested in what happens if we put 19 lots in and none sell in 5 years? Okay? What price are the lots going to be at? And I know from talking to Michael and Ellen, they're very reasonable about these things, but as your economic development director, I have to present this information to you so that you're aware, so that 5 years from now you don't say you didn't tell me, right? So we have to kind of, would want to share with you what we think lots would sell for, and we're very hopeful that the lots will sell, but what happens if, 5 years in only 5 lots have sold, but you're sitting there essentially with a $1.5 million investment in the infrastructure, right? So we have to talk about those things and present it to you in the form of a development agreement so that we have a long-term agreement with if-thens built into it so that there's no surprises and we don't find ourselves, again, 10 years down the road going, well, they're not moving, the prices on the lots are too high, we've got all this infrastructure, what do we do then? And so we would want to bring that to you next, and Michael can spend his money however he wants to, but it would make sense that we would want that development agreement hashed out before much more engineering is done.
Okay. Question, I'm going to ask Ron Fruit a question here. Ron, you represent District 1, your home is in the Wedgewood neighborhood. Can you tell me approximately the houses on your street, when they were built, like what timeline when those houses were built?
Norm and Mary Sandmeyer were first. We've been in our house now for 21 years. It was built as a model. In the last 3 weeks, 2 houses have sold within a week. Put a sign in your yard, and the last one, the reported was 419,000.
I'm aware, I know this.
And that happened within
one showing. One showing.
And that's what's happened in that neighborhood every time. They've been sold before they were listed or otherwise, and so that's been an incredible opportunity.
Well, and down in your neighborhood, that is absolutely true. I know both of the people that sold their house, they sold it in the first person that looked at it.
Yep.
Above ask on the first one, by the way. So, one second, Karen. So, what I'm asking for here, how long it took, we think, to fill the Wedgewood neighborhood from the time the houses began to be built to the last few were just built in the last couple of years, the 2 duplexes in the last house, to try to just tell people, here's the point. It took some time to fill what's there. I can't envision, look at the fight we're having to find homes for people is crazy. Now picture it if Wedgewood wasn't there. We can do it again. It's not Wedgewood. It's not the same thing. But 19 houses in a really nice residential neighborhood. It was designed to be a residential neighborhood. Yes, Ron, did you have more to add? I wasn't sure.
No, I think that's...
Rachel,
I had a question. Just between what are the lot sizes between the 19 plan and the 10 plan?
I'll memorize page long.
You there? So the 9 lots or whatever, I did that.
Or take 9.
Yeah, 9 and 19. I did the 9 lots just recently when we thought we had to cut back depending on available share investment. They're bigger lots, so we can tell you that. The size of the lots, I think the 19, they still start at over a quarter acre up to about a 1 acre lot. I think the lower, we have, on the 19, you want to talk about the 19? On the 19, we have 3 tiers of homes. One along the bottom would be a zero barrier home that would come in and off of the new Rainbow location. So those were the first 6 or 7. 6 if we need some water retention for stormwater on that plateau. We could get up to 7 depending on how. But the lots were sized about 130 by, I think, 180. The lots on the first tier recapture some of the land that we would gain from the road. Above there, the lots are larger, and then the third tier, the lots are larger. So you're probably up to half-acre lots or more. And at one time, I could give you the exact square footages of each lot if I ran right down the list. But
That's okay, I'm just looking at the diagram and I can tell they're getting smaller.
it's hard to scale it all.
Yeah.
But, if you only want to do 9 lots, that was an effort to economize the building project by not moving the road, but we run into problems because the water is positioned in a place where we get kind of that space between expanding the road to a size that it should be by your ordinance, and then the water line is right there. So the lots get big, but we have fewer lots, so 9 people will be really happy because they'll have 1 acre lots, right? So we'd like to get more efficiency and more density along there because we have so much of an elevation gain. We're on a hillside. So.
And the standard city lot is about, what, 66 by 132? So just for frame of reference.
So, Michael, you're speaking of some pretty specific type homes, like the zero entry and that type of thing. So are you doing like all spec homes, or you are building?
You want to feel this one?
I'll just tell you where to stop.
Was it Dirty Harry or remember when Clint Eastwood gets to the end of the movie and the shootout is there and the car is rolling down there and it bursts into flames and the bad guy just burns up and Clint Eastwood says, a man's got to know his limitations, right? So I think, in our experience here in the last year and a half doing a lot of stuff, I don't want to build 20 homes. If I would do a business plan and say I have 20 lots and I can build 20 homes, and the general contracting fee, it'd be a great business plan, right? But you have people here that have relationships with builders. We've talked to the builders. The builders want some spec homes that they can do. Individuals that we would like to nurture and provide for in the business, to grow the building business, because I love my career building and Ellen in real estate. I mean, it's a pretty good gig. And you've got guys here that really are good and really want to work, and you've got their clients that really want new homes. So we're more in handoff mode than we are in anything else.
So more of a general.
Yeah, or do a decent set of covenants on the plans, because we need some kind of covenants to provide for continuity or quality, but we don't want to turn off any buyers either by having restrictive covenants, right? So it's a little bit semantic there, but we want people to get into homes, and we've got an opportunity to do it right now, so, with your help. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so again, we covered a lot of ground here, but I think we needed to. So coming back to the way this is phrased on the agenda, development options, grant fund allocation. So you see the 2 sketches and you've seen the list of projects and you know what the grant's about and how we got it. Doug, you're new in here. Any other questions about that grant, how we got it, anything about it? Okay, excellent. Rachel?
No, you answered everything.
Excellent. Okay, so first things first, I guess, 9 or 19 houses. You've heard me on this 3 times tonight. I'll say it again if you want. 19, thanks. My opinion. Okay, next, do you want to spend the money to do 19 out of the grant fund and reallocate? That's where you guys are at. If somebody wants to make a motion, do that. If you have another question or comment, do that.
Well, yeah, just one question. So we have this date for the Starlight folks coming up soon. But we do have to wait, right? I mean, we can't act beforehand, right? Attorney?
Nobody signed anything.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, Contracts 101, offer acceptance and consideration. So I'm proposing this, person accepts this, and then something of value exchanges hands. We're missing, frankly, acceptance and consideration.
Okay.
So
If
if we could make it contingent, I think that would be the safer bet. But I mean, I think it's the reversionary interest has been to the Supreme Court, I think, twice, and it's been upheld. So if the holders of that interest are not willing to give it up or sell it, there's no movement there. So it's just a matter of running out the clock.
And should that be part of the motion?
That would, yes, be preferable.
How would you phrase the motion, Mr. Wendell?
So motion to reallocate the grant funding from the Starlight project to the Lamont subdevelopment upon the expiration of the previously set deadline.
So moved.
A motion from Ms. Tepley, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Walters, one now. Okay, here we are. We have the motion and the second. We've reviewed this. You have it all in front of you. More questions or comments?
When's the deadline?
August, I don't know the date.
30th.
Oh, so it's coming up.
Yeah, it's 6 weeks, 5 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, further discussion? You need a roll call vote.
Tepley,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Martnick,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Downs,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Fur.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Okay, now I want to echo a point Rachel tried to make a little bit ago. That is two very big decisions on behalf of our people, and really, the kind of momentum we've been trying to get. The opportunities that are in front of us, we're nowhere, we've got a lot of work yet to do. We cleared a big step in both of them tonight. That's great work, everybody involved. Okay, items for discussion, a review of council rules draft.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
there was a second part of the conversation if you wanted to entertain it, as far as given the level of investment that's being made, is there any desire to consider negotiating some sort of purchase?
Well, I wasn't sure where we were here when we started talking about paying engineers or not. I wasn't sure. Do you want, Mike, do you want to have that conversation? Are you ready to talk about whether or not there's a buyout possibility or there's not? I mean, honestly, yeah, I didn't think so. Okay,
What would you do?
I'm glad you brought that. I'm glad you said it in front of everybody, but that's a maybe later. Okay.
I think that the types of questions that, I think you're gonna have questions on the development agreement, and I would suggest that in the time that we're waiting for the, for this, the other motion to basically run out, that we'll be working hard to have a development agreement that could be proposed instantaneously. And so you have that to look forward to, and there may be questions that you've developed from that, so.
Thank you.
Where did that come from? Is that from us or from the offer to purchase?
The concept,
Yeah. Was
the
that-
idea?
Who's
The
that?
concept happened through conversations, some conversations that we've had there, and an idea from myself because of the amount of investment, and then it's like, how complicated it is to have a developer partner, right? So if there was a reasonable buyout and we didn't have to go through all of a development agreement and come up with all these if-then clauses, it might be a consideration if the price was appropriate for the municipality to consider buyout if the owners were willing to sell. So that's the concept behind it, because the amount of investment that the municipality is having by putting in 1.5 million at this point is quite a far in advance of what the developer is putting in. So it just is a way to simplify and say, well, we wouldn't have to necessarily then look at, are we unduly enriching, and how much money do they make, and what happens if there's no lot sold in 10 years, and so it was a simplifying factor, but again, you have to have a willing seller, and the council would have to be open to that. So it was just another idea to get the development to move.
Okay. items for discussion, initial review of council rules draft. I know it's in your packet. I don't know how many of you have read it. I know that the committee has worked on this for a long time, put a lot of effort into it. So I will start by asking Karen or Melanie, who really kind of drove this thing from its inception, if you have anything specific you'd like to introduce or go over, go ahead and do it.
Mary pretty much wrapped it up. Yes, we have been busy working on going over the rules, and we looked at other communities' council rules. We looked at the county's council rules. So Attorney Wendell had the opportunity to take documents from the county as well as organization and kind of combine the two. So to speak, and then we went over that again, so we had a few long meetings. So I would turn it over to Attorney Wendell if you want to go over or have a legal opinion.
So I will start by giving the same spiel that I gave to the committee when they started. These are ultimately the rules by which you govern yourselves. There are some statutory powers that are enumerated therein, but generally speaking, these are the things that are entirely within your control. And so I have suggestions and recommendations, but really you all need to be making the decisions here in how these are going to operate. So there's been a number of occasions throughout my tenure where we've encountered a situation where the rules have not addressed a situation, whether it be parliamentary or the creation of committees. And so, the rules of the council as they existed needed an update and a refresh. And if nothing else, we needed to get the reference to Robert's Rules of Order into the rules. Basically, that's a catch-all provision. Robert's Rules is the gold standard for parliamentary proceedings. And so, you can toss this entire draft, but please, please, please adopt a provision saying that if something's not covered in the rules, that you refer to Robert's Rules of Order. And then just going through, I can read it word for word, I can go in depth, but just a broad outline, I guess we'll go by section. So the first section relates to the way that the council and the committees are organized, how committee members are appointed, how chairs are selected, how agendas are generated. So that had been sort of a question. There had been some times when agendas were not up to the standard, and so there, some people stepped in and did additional review for them and subject to approval, and so it just kind of clarifies that procedure. It allows for instances where if the individual in charge of an agenda is disinclined to add a particular item to the agenda, despite popular desire to have that item discussed, it clarifies a process by which you can, kind of force that item onto the agenda. Clarifies telephonic participation or video conference participation. Going into committee creation, we used the ad hoc committee itself as an example of how the rules had failed to, address how a chair was selected. The mayor appointed a chair when he created the committee, because there's nothing indicating how a chair should be chosen. I will say that there was a change made so that a committee votes its own chair. But that's the sort of omission that existed in the current rules that we're trying to correct here. There's a process laid out for post-election. things that council members will be expected to do, training that they are expected to attend, and then a more spelled out, robust process for nominations and service for the council president. And then it incorporates the commission preference form that Administrator Oliphant developed, I believe, as part of that. Section 211, I do actually want to highlight. So even though, you know, we're post a contract renewal and Administrator Oliphant has served for 3 years in her current role, I think this is really helpful for a government that has recently transitioned to an administrator form of government, because there are often members of the quote-unquote legislative body, the council, who may have grown used to, you know, day-to-day involvement and management of the city, and with the appointment of an administrator, a lot of that power is meant to be delegated to the administrator. Oftentimes that can create some friction, and so this provision is in there just to make clear that, you know, the council sets policy, the administrator executes it. So she is your sole employee. You know, you tell her generally what you want the city to accomplish, and if, you know, down to a streets guy mowing the lawn or something like that, if you have an issue with the way the jobs of the city are being performed, your option is fire her. Other than that, you direct her to resolve those issues, and then again, if she fails to do so, you take it out on her. Another thing to address, and this came up several times, is how to fill a vacancy in an office of the city council. So section 215 as well, just going over briefly. By statute, you cannot exclude a member of an elected body from a meeting of that body. So no alderperson who is properly elected may be excluded from any portion of a city council meeting. However, as long as you have a policy for how it happens, you may exclude members from subunit meetings. So, for example, if personnel is discussing a disciplinary matter in closed session, and someone who is not on personnel decides, I'm just going to wander in and hear this out and see what's going on here. If it's a particular sensitivity or, you know, whatever reason there may be, the committee can vote to exclude that member. Now, it takes a 3/4 majority, so you really have to be committed to excluding that person. But I think that that's a protection against the transparency that's the statutory intent, while at the same time allowing for those rare situations where it is appropriate to exclude a member. Clarifies, I guess, it clarifies there again with the appointment of an administrator. You know, the mayor is statutorily the chief executive officer of the city, but I just said that the administrator is supposed to execute all the stuff you do. So as much as I would like in black and white, it's kind of spelled out the mayor's role in relation to the administrator's role. Ultimately, I think it's going to depend more on the individuals filling the respective offices. So I didn't want to create too much restriction or guide that relationship too much, but there was no guidance previously. So this is a little bit better. 4.01 is the parliamentary authority that I am begging for. The one question I would have on that, so every legislative body has a parliamentarian, so basically someone who interprets these rules. That person, generally speaking, should not be a member of that body. By default, I made it the city attorney, but it could be the administrator, clerk, some other person. So that's something to think about. There is a general order of business laid out. Again, these are trumped by agendas. So if there was no agenda to a meeting, this is the way that you would go about things. But we're pretty good about getting our agendas together and published. So this is just kind of a contingency. The rules incorporate participation in public comment for those meetings where the agenda setter deems public comment is appropriate. One discussion that came up recently, the county, was the length of time that's granted. So right now it says you can't speak longer than 3 minutes and you can only speak once per meeting if you're a member of the public. There were concerns about individuals with disabilities, to which I said, that would be appropriate under the Americans with Disability Acts to provide accommodations for. But that time is not governed by anything in particular. If you think more time, less time is appropriate.
Don't our rules right now, like if the person doing the public comment, if they want extended time, can the mayor grant extended time currently?
So, let's see. I think all that the rules do currently is allow the presiding officer to recognize someone not a member of the council to speak. It doesn't give any.
So with these revised rules, can the mayor still grant more time if they want to speak, or are we doing a...
Any presiding officer can at any time. That's inherent to the role.
Just inherent, but it's not written in the rules?
Right.
I love inherent.
Yeah, I mean that is what presiding is you run the meeting. So maybe if it were a situation where someone has specialized input that they want to, or like our developers, they're not members of the council, but they're not making public comment either. They have information directly germane to an agenda item. So that would be more recognition by the presiding officer than governed by public comment.
In the current council rules, Rule 18 is addressing council by members of the public. And so it says the presiding officer may allow any member of the public to address the council at any time. That an older person could address the council under these rules. The presiding officer shall have the right to limit the time any such person may speak, may limit the number of persons speaking, and may place other restrictions upon such presentation as they deem appropriate, and the presiding officer may similarly cut off the presentation of any such member of the public who violates any restriction so imposed or who indulges in personal insults or other disrespectful or inappropriate behavior before the council.
So, as currently written, somebody has to be the bad guy. Now we can just blame it on the rules. So if someone wants to speak for more time, you can say, I'm sorry, it's written to the rules, versus having to say affirmatively, you're done talking, I'm cutting it.
So, okay, somebody talked 3 minutes. Rod Perry's here talking about the squirrels on Hazeltine Street. That actually happened.
That was my first meeting.
Yep, and we're going through this, and he's got another 40 seconds to go. Can I grant it to him or not?
Yes, as the presiding officer, you can, I mean, you just choose not to enforce these rules. They're meant to be something that you can rely on in the event that someone needs to be stopped. But anyone, that is the responsibility of the presiding officer. So in that scenario, Mr. Perry's talking, discussing it, he's at 4 minutes.
Right.
One of the alders says, Mr. Mayor, it's been 4 minutes, I ask that you speak and stop him from speaking. The presiding officer says, I'm the presiding officer, I'm choosing to grant him additional time. That would be grounds for a parliamentary challenge. So the alder could say, I move to limit the debate, limit the speech, and so that would be a full motion of the council.
Cut me off so I can go watch the ball game.
Yeah. I know where they're both at right now. The Brewers are in CIA. Michael, wrap it up, buddy.
Now see, if we're talking Mr. Perry specifically, I would be scared to cut him off, so I would be glad to be able to refer to the rules. And then just general decorum. Reconsideration, this one, we had some trouble determining what it meant, but we got it figured out. And so basically, if you win a vote, you can then eventually call for that to be reconsidered. Those are the highlights, I would say.
Okay, so on the agenda, this is a review, so no action is asked for tonight. Does anybody have any questions about what you just heard?
I just have one question. As long as we're talking about a public comment, the order of business for the agenda, we had moved public comment to the bottom. I think we were restricting people to 5 minutes for courtesy the last couple of years. If 20 people show up for a hot topic and we limit it to 3 minutes, and we have something that's going to take more than an hour, 2, 3 hours, that was some of the reason for moving that down there. Can we still reorder the agenda?
Yeah, again, the order of business in the rules only applies if you don't take any action to change it. So when you create an agenda, if you can put public comment anywhere after approval of minutes of the previous meeting.
There have been several times, somebody had something that really mattered and they'd come a distance, so I moved them first, even though they were sixth on there when we started, whatever. But that's always when we're approving the agenda, right? We always have done it that way, so then it's like, okay, 6 is now number 1, and then approve the agenda that way, the amended agenda.
Some of the conversation that happened during our committee meeting was, that I brought up that we used to have more people that would attend the meetings, and not that we're here to, want an audience, but this is for the public that we do this. That's who we represent. So by having the public comment at the end, we just thought maybe if we moved it to the top, we would have more public attending our meetings, and if they had something to say, they knew that they could get their piece said and move on if they wanted or needed. And it's also the reverse of, well, if they sit through the whole meeting, they'll learn a few things possibly, and and then speak later. It was just one of those, well, maybe at moments. So that's all.
Okay, anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So as Attorney Wendell said, these are the rules for all of the council members. So while this committee is working on revising them, we would appreciate that you all look at them and highlight stuff or have questions when you have some more time to look through it. Because once it's adopted, then these are our rules. So please take some time to do that. Then we are also going to work on committees, boards, and that section. That is coming up also. So if you have any questions about committees, boards, and the like, can hold those until we get to them. And Attorney Wendell, remember this handy little guide
Yes.
that I gave you?
Yep.
I don't know if you had a chance to look it over, if this was something we want to.
Yeah, it's the cheat sheet basically for motions and things like that.
Yeah.
Yep. We can certainly incorporate that. It doesn't necessarily need to be incorporated into the rules because it's ultimately a reference to Robert's Rules of Order. But it certainly would be something that we could hand out as part of that post-election procedures. We could do that.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
So when we do vote on these, they have to be approved by 2/3 vote?
Yes, because that will be, well, let me check the current rules. I'm reasonably certain that amendment of these rules requires, 2/3.
So, okay.
Okay, anything further on that?
I wrote somewhere in here that every meeting starts by having to pay the city attorney $5.
Better than having us.
Just gonna check and make sure everybody's reading it.
We did not put the,
Yeah, I get it.
we did not put who has to bring pizza though.
It should be in there. Should be in there, that's District 2.
Add that as a suggestion.
That's the senior elder from District 2. All right. Next on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
That one goes to Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Karen, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everyone. Tonight, meeting is adjourned.